while we were not keen on a label, it turns out that to try and access resources, you needed a label. So my wife and I decided to change the script, and we went outside of the conventional, which was a massive deal because I was embroiled in this, and my wife is yeah, I was in it, right? And my wife is an organic chemist. Okay, like that's the definition of geek. All right, I'm Kumar, and this is
I'm Amit.
Yeah. So Amit had autism. And
Yes.
one of the few leftover pieces of things is that his independent speech is still affected. And so what he does, this is how he runs a global consulting company. What he does is he types on this card. It's a 50% piece of laminated plastic.
A really big hill to climb. You've got a mountain to climb in terms of just physical challenges, right? And to grow beyond that experience into the person who sets themselves up to not only be a resource to yourself, but to a resource for people who are all around you. That's an incredible story, man. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Pancakes From Scratch Podcast. This is a conversation. I love to have great conversations with good people doing incredible things. Today is no exception to the rule. I've got a couple of great folks with me. Today's episode is a little different. We've got someone who is going to communicate using a card. Kumar, could you show us the card that we were talking about just a second ago?
Hey, Ernest, thank you very much for having us on. I'm Kumar, and this is...
I'm Amit.
Yeah. So Amit had autism. And
Yes.
one of the few leftover pieces of things is that his independent speech is still affected. And so what he does, this is how he runs a global consulting company. What he does is he types on this card. It's a 50% piece of laminated plastic. and I read what he's typing. And so it's going to be obvious when I'm speaking from when he is. Ernest.
Perfect.
Thank you for having us here.
You're more than
This
welcome.
strange tapping sound is me on the card my dad showed.
Awesome.
The easiest way to consider this card is just like you, Ernest, use glasses to help you see. I use this card to help me speak.
Perfect.
And you will be able to tell when my dad sounds like a human, it's him. When he sounds like a robot, that's him reading what I am typing.
I love it, guys. This is awesome, man. This is great. Well, first of all, just thank you both for making the time to be here and to dive into a quick conversation with me. And in a few minutes, we'll get into really who you are and what you do and why I'm so impressed by the things that you have going on. But before we do, it's really important to me that we quickly start with, hey, just what's giving you energy this week?
Well, for me, it's being able to talk to business owners who are selling their business because there is some pain in their lives or the business itself. And we help them find solutions.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. That's a good thing to get some energy from. That's perfect. What about you, Dad? What do you think?
Well, for me, Amit and I are actively engaged in acquiring businesses, and so I look at more of the business structure, and Amit actually is very much involved in solving the people piece that
Ah,
happens in that sale, in that acquisition. So
okay.
together we make this work and put our team to work coming up with solutions.
Perfect. Ah, that's awesome, man. Very, very cool. Okay, well, the way I like to run this podcast is to really dive into some insights about personal experiences that you've had that help to prepare you to do the work that you do. All right. So, one of the first questions I like to lead with is when you think about some of the biggest challenges you've had in life, is there one that stands out to you as something that really helped to shape who you are as a person, as a leader?
Well, that's easy, Ernest. And here's
Okay.
I had autism, and I knew the following,
Hmm.
that if this little autistic kid was here, there must be a reason.
Mm.
I didn't then know the reason what, but I knew there must be a reason.
Yes, indeed.
It turned out, Ernest, that to navigate the maze that was autism, I learned a lot
Mm.
about human awareness, human achievement. It was out of personal hunger that I became an expert in human behavior.
Wow.
Then I started writing on this very card, initially with my mom, then my dad. Then people found out I was writing, wanted to read it, and eventually my dad, being an entrepreneur, thought, this is nuts. We might as well sell this. So we started selling my writing, which was effectively white papers. And that grew into a global human behavior advisory firm.
Wow, man.
We now get to solve the soft problems, the people problems, and especially the ones that occur above HR,
That is
among
incredible.
owners, etc.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that, but there is more about how our then company evolved.
Beautiful.
It turns out that when we are trying to exit a business, or when life dictates that we exit a business, it is often very stressful. And we humans have difficulties handling a full plate.
For
It
sure.
runs over. And that's how we became involved in helping at the time of mergers and acquisitions.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that's how little autistic kid became a student of multiple different areas of study, and eventually putting that to work in life and for clients. And that's eventually now why we are buying businesses, because we get to put the same things that we understand about humans and how they work into companies that we are acquiring.
That's massive, man.
And what's interesting is that these acquisitions are now squeezing out the thing that got us started. There is progressively less time to do the consulting we love.
Well, yeah, man, we get busy. Like, busy is good, but busy is busy. It gets in the way. That's, man, but that is an incredible story to come to a realization that you have a really big hill to climb. You've got a mountain to climb in terms of just physical challenges, right? And to grow beyond that experience into the person who sets themselves up to not only be a resource to yourself, but to a resource for people who are all around you. That's an incredible story, man.
That, Ernest, is no different from each of us does.
Wow.
I was just blessed to have some really big challenges and really early on. But challenges don't stop. I recall we were to speak a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you, like the phoenix,
Yep.
but not from fire, rose from the flood.
True indeed. We had a flood, and God, there was so much water. So there's like a ton of water damage right over the garage, and God, it had to be. It was like right before we were scheduled to meet, and I go in the garage to grab something, and like water's dripping from the ceiling. Like, what is going on? And I got like all this stuff. Like, life doesn't stop just because the challenges come, right? So just because there's all of a sudden this surprise issue doesn't mean that everything else just gets to wait for you to figure it out. You've got to be ready to let people know what's happening, communicate the issue that's going on, and be prepared to adjust and make things happen. Because if I would have let that experience just overwhelm me, right, I wouldn't have been able to communicate that, hey, we gotta stick with this opportunity to connect and get your story told. It would have just been a missed opportunity, all because I couldn't deal with the stress.
It would have been washed away, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Now, before we move on to the next question, Kumar, I'm really interested in your experience as a father, right? And how being there with your son as he experiences these challenges and growing up, how did that experience prepare you for being the type of resource you are to his business and the business that you built together?
Well, Ernest, life is moments, right? And life is also the stories that get built up around those moments. And if I may, I might share a bit of a story. So what happened is that I've got another day life, another day job where I'm still a practicing physician, progressively less because Chintan Project is squeezing out my medical work. So, but I still practice some. And at that time, when Amit was much younger, I practiced a lot. In fact, I was a full-time university prof and all the academic stuff. Yeah. And what happened is that Amit had severe developmental delay and features of autism at that time. And while we were not keen on a label, it turns out that to try and access resources, you needed a label. And labels have got two sides, right? Labels have got benefits because it can access stuff, but it's got drawbacks too, because some people hide behind labels. Yes. But anyway, my wife and I were not keen on the label, but we needed a label, so they said, right? So we had an assessment done when Amit was about 2.5 at a psychologist. And at the end of it, the psychologist met with Pratima and I with this. They said, if there was 1,000 kids lined end to end, Amit would be the third worst. Mm. And the psychologist said the following to my wife and I. He said, but Kumar and Pratima, you don't have to worry because Amit would qualify for a teaching assistant at school. And I thought to myself, that is not my dream for my kid to qualify for a teaching assistant in school. Now, in fairness, he meant well. Yeah. He meant to say, look, you don't have to bear this burden alone. There's going to be resources and access and so on. But anyway, in that moment, as I heard that, I made a decision that we were not going to follow the path. Yes. That was typical. Because I was a pediatrician, I was a pediatric subspecialist, I knew how this movie of developmental delay and autism would end. Like I knew how this movie would end. And I had this thought in that moment. If you don't like the movie, yeah, change the script. If you don't like the movie, you change the script. And I don't know where that came from, but boy, that has played a lot in our lives over time. And so my wife and I decided to change the script, and we went outside of the conventional, which was a massive deal because I was embroiled in this. And my wife is yeah, I was in it, right? And my wife is an organic chemist, okay? Like that's the definition of geek, right? That's at some point she's going to hear this podcast and I'm in big trouble. But that's like the definition of like sciencey, evidency, right?
There you go. Clean it up. Clean it up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, dig a hole while you're at it, Kumar. But so what happens is that, so, you know, this was a massive deal for us to go onto this different path. And yet, in that moment of challenge, we made a decision that carved a new path. Like literally, it started to build new ruts. Pathways are sometimes ruts, and that's okay, but it started to build a new rut. Instead of going the way the river was going to naturally flow, we started a new rut. And out of that rut, so many have helped us to navigate to where we are today.
That's beautiful, man. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, so where we are today, really, really excited to share more about this project, the Chintan Project. What is it? What you're acquiring businesses, or you're engaging in mergers and acquisitions. How would you describe what it is you do?
In a strange way, we are doing exactly what we set out to do when I first envisioned Chintan Project. My personal mission, because I was so certain of purpose, of reason for being was the following. I, Amit Chintan Ramlall, dedicate my life to helping children of all ages find and follow their true calling, that they might lead the world. That personal mission got translated into Chintan Project in the following way. How do we help the leaders of businesses find and follow their reasons for being, their purpose, that they might create new ideas that serve humanity, create new projects that serve humanity, and thereby lead the world? I became convinced too, Ernest, that not only does each individual have a unique purpose, but that our challenges were unique too. Yes. Even the same challenges are viewed differently by others. The flood in your home had different meanings to you and to the others that live at home. COVID had different meanings to each of us. And that uniqueness of purpose, including the purpose of challenge, is something that I have developed expertise in, and our company helps others do. Today, instead of only helping an individual leader, we get to put that to work on behalf of entire companies.
Awesome.
Same mission, same tools, perhaps different scale. That's all.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. So let's say I've got a business, and I've for the last 3 years have been trying to make my business work, but I'm having some trouble with achieving the scale that I'd like to achieve. What does it look like for me to engage the Chintan Project?
Well, you can imagine this is a problem that we see very often.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that rather than us talking theoretically, how about we share a story of someone in those exact shoes?
Perfect. Perfect.
So I'm thinking of Danny. He ran a growing, heating HVAC company, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't growing as fast as he'd like. And when we met with him, basically on a discovery call, he explained this, and we said, so if your wife, because it was family owned, fired you as CEO and replaced you, what would be the first steps that new CEO would take to build this business? It's interesting because he had a list. So many of us business owners already have a list, don't we?
Oh, absolutely.
Then we said, so Danny, obviously not his real name, so Danny, what's keeping you from getting with the program? Right? So if you had a list, what's keeping you from getting with the program? Well, that took some work.
Yeah.
But for starters, the program wasn't his. It was what the prior consultants had told him he should do to grow the business. But he did not see how those steps related to his why, his reason for running a business. In fact, he strategically was holding his business at a set level because he had concerns about what growth would mean.
Wow.
It served him to be exactly where he was. And the reasons were like an octopus with many tentacles. They extended to his relationship with his wife, to his kids, to the fact he had taken over a business from his father. And all of those were part of why he couldn't stick with the program. He didn't want to run an HVAC company at all. So instead of fighting an uphill battle, we came up together with a strategy for exiting in 3 years. The reason we speak of him as a business owner in past tense is that he exited in January.
Oh, man. Okay.
So what is your reason? Everything is a strategy, Ernest. And your strategy is getting you what you really want. Not, whoa, what you say you want.
Wow. Jeez. Okay. Okay.
So when you engage us,
Yes.
we only ask that you let us go where you are going to take us. And those ruts, those alternate pathways we talked about are always existent. No life, no business, at least in our perceptions, is a straight line.
True.
Now, to be fair, it is likely a straight line. But the foibles of our human minds keeps us from seeing that. We are always on track. We just don't always perceive it that way.
Ooh. We're always on track.
I might as well write that down.
That's, man, what? We're always on track. We just don't always perceive it that way. That is powerful, man. Because Danny thought that something was wrong. And what we come to realize is, no, things are working exactly how you actually want them to work.
Yeah.
That is, but it's profound that it takes a little bit of conversation to recognize and acknowledge that, right? It takes somebody from the outside looking in sometimes to just unlock that perspective.
It takes a few things. Included in what it takes is a hunger for something different. As a consultant yourself, have you experienced the personal pain of a non-hungry client? I'm sure you have.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's come up. That's come up a time or two for sure. Oh man.
It seems in that advisory or consulting role, one of our first tasks is to connect with that hunger. Otherwise, a muscle shall not be moved in a different direction.
Yeah, that's true. Like I can't want it more than the client, right? My desire for the client's change can't supersede the client's desire for their own change. That is okay. Okay. You guys know what you're talking about. You guys know what you're talking about.
I have spent a lifetime navigating this thing that's the human mind. I'm okay acknowledging I know a thing or two. I am humble enough to know there is the majority I don't yet know. So I keep learning.
I love it. I love it. Always learning, always growing, always finding new opportunities to engage and understand different experiences, different mindsets and approaches to things. That's a beautiful approach to take, especially to the type of work that you do. This is great. This is great. Okay. So
for your audience,
yes,
who might be interested in more stories like that, the most efficient way is on our website, chintanproject.com.
I love it.
Because while we are on social media, we both love to talk a lot rather than in snippets.
Yes.
And the social media algorithms don't like us as a result.
That's how that goes. That's exactly how that goes. No, I think I appreciate that because folks will want to know how to get in touch with you, how to, learn more about the work that you've done and hear more stories, to your point, about the experiences that folks have had in working with you. So thank you for sharing that website. We'll make sure we'll throw a link
Thank
on
you.
the post when we get this thing live. Now, before we wrap up or get too much further, Pancakes from Scratch, that's the name of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And the name came from this idea that there's an intersection between food, culture, and ambition. Okay. And so when we think about where these things intersect, food, culture, and ambition, what came to mind for me is that we've all got these experiences that we overcome throughout our lives. And that experience of overcoming allows us to be developed into the people who can achieve the things that we achieve. And along that journey, the way we experience the things that we go through are impacted by the culture that we engage and participate with. More often than not, that culture is informed by the types of food that we eat and the way we enjoy food together, right? Whether that's a big family meal, whether that's, alone with a cup of ramen noodles, it really just depends on what your experiences are, what your culture looks like, and, how that experience impacted who you are. So all that to say, do you have a favorite food from your childhood?
Food and me have an interesting relationship
Okay.
because my parents would tell you that about the only thing I would eat was cheese sticks. Then we met the IAHP.org, the Institute for Achievement of Human Potential. These people have changed the trajectory for Amit from developmental delay and autism. They are who taught us to use this card. They taught us how to teach him to read and so on.
Wow.
And IAHP.org changed our lives. And in their initial stages, they took a lot of food away from me, including cheese sticks. My parents thought I would wither away and die of starvation. And in addition to losing their child, they would go to jail. So there were many things removed from my diet.
Sure.
And as I came to watch me change in response, in part to this dietary change, I realized that in this restriction came freedom. In this apparent limited world of food, I was having more freedom of mind. I was thinking more clearly. I was physically developing more also. This is a model that is repeated, where there is no freedom without constraint.
Wow.
And yes, it was painful to not have cheese sticks. But in this constraint, I was getting to know the freedom.
Wow. Oh man. We all have these, we all have different relationships with food and nutrition. And there's just something really, really powerful about how our experiences with, like I said, food culture and how those things tie into our ambition. It really speaks to the developmental experience that it shifts from person to person, from human to human. We all have a pathway that is impacted by these things. Cheese sticks. What?
You pick your favorite brand, including no-name generic cheese sticks. And I love them.
Awesome, man. That is awesome. Okay. Well, I'm glad that
maybe just joking, but that's where the CH came from for Chintan.
I can see it. I can see that as a possibility. Oh man,
there is a story, of course, to Chintan.
Of course.
But that's for another one of our conversations.
Absolutely.
Or we tell it on the website too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a powerful story. I browsed through the website just to see and learn a little bit more about your company, but that story there is
but
powerful.
We didn't mention cheese sticks on there, you know?
Yeah, which is surprising. What where were the cheese sticks in the story?
It took Ernest pulling the cheese sticks out of Amit.
Oh man, this is that is hilarious. That has to be, I think, one of the most unique. Got to be one of the most unique is cheese sticks being a favorite meal item. That's hilarious to me. But I'm glad that you were introduced to other foods with a variety a variety of nutritional values. So, I'm sure it was scary not having access to cheese sticks, but we made it to today. So here we go. Oh man. That's wonderful. You guys, listen, I really appreciate you both making the time for just diving into conversation with me and being here just to share a little bit about the Chintan Project and your personal stories. I think the community of folks who watch this podcast will take some benefit from the things that you've shared and the insights and perspective. I think will be really, really beneficial for some folks. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us on. This is a privilege. Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, you two take care. I look forward to following up with you. You all be well, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you.